Let's switch over to Maki Pitolo facing off against Julian Marquez, man. First and foremost, I don't think that this is going to be a really popular bout in terms of like fans understanding and knowing these athletes, right? Julian Marquez especially, because this is a hardcore fans bout. This is two Dana White Contender Series alumni facing off toe-to-toe, man. So Maki Pitolo is from Season 3 of the Contender Series. Julian Marquez is from Season 1. And Marquez, he noted in his pre-fight interviews that he's representing his Dana White Contender Series alumni, saying Season 1 was the best talent that the show had to offer, and he's going to prove it on Saturday night. My question to you is this. Julian Marquez, his last fight, he's coming off of a loss to Alessio Di Chirico, who just got the big win over Joaquin Buckley, but it was a split decision loss, whereas Maki Pitolo, his last loss was versus the very talented Impa Kasanganai, who got knocked out by Joaquin Buckley, and that was a very decisive unanimous decision win. My first question off the bat is, being that these are two legitimate strikers, once the round gets to the third round, who has the advantage to you in terms of on the feet? I think that gas tank is something we do have to consider for both of these fighters.
Like you said, Derek, gas tank is a big thing we have to consider for these fighters, especially for Maki Pitolo. Lately, you've seen him exactly. A lot of his downfall is because he's really good in the first round, and if he doesn't get you out in the first round, it's going to be a long night standing there in the deep water. Now, Julian Marquez, I think he has the advantage when it comes late in the rounds, especially with his new mindset and his new training. Taking that, he was quoting it in his pre-fight interview with 31 months off. Taking all that time and finding that rejuvenation and love for the process, I think is going to do him well later in the rounds and when he starts to feel that love for the actual reward of that process. What do you think?
Well, you know what, man? I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think both fighters get tired as the rounds go on. I mean, come on, we're fighting. This is, what time it is. But legitimately, I think Maki Pitolo has a bigger drop-off because when, kind of that gas tank starts depleting, it's not just the output that drops. It's not just the speed that drops. It's the head movement, man. He stays in the pocket just a little bit too long, and that's one of my critiques, is that Julian Marquez, he has the advantage in the pocket because he pops his shots and then he gets out. You know what I mean? Like, he has really deceptive head movement, which is, I think it's going to favor him in the later rounds because he's still going to be able to kind of get off of the center line, which Maki Pitolo, he'll just trade and bang, man. And he's got a chin. Both of these fighters have a chin, but both, strengths, in my opinion, is boxing combos in the pocket and experience for Maki Pitolo. You know what I mean? Maki Pitolo has 20 fights. It's like this dude is, let me see, he is 1-3 in the UFC, but he has 20 fights. So he's done a lot of dirty work outside in the regional promotions and whatnot. When it comes down to this, Maki Pitolo has 7 knockouts in 20 fights. Julian Marquez has 6 knockouts in 7 fights, or 6 knockouts in 9 fights. What does that tell you when you see a stat like that?
6 knockouts in how many fights? Excuse me, internet cut out.
In 9 fights.
Ooh, yeah, well, exactly. Maki Pitolo is heavy-handed. I mean, there's a reason they call him coconut bomb.
No, this is Julian Marquez. Julian Marquez has 6 knockouts in 9 fights. Maki Pitolo has 7 in 20 fights.
7 and 20. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, if you look back at Julian Marquez, a lot of his fights, he's a lot of heavy pressure, and he hits shots on people that they don't actually see coming. And I think being the way he was and kind of under-talked and under-praised, under-hyped, he's not necessarily somebody that looks dangerous, and he's more of just a power, like pressure forward, just a kind of a big bear that's coming at you. So I think that right there plays into his attacks. Like you said, 6 for 9. That's a lot of putting people down, you know what I'm saying? Either way, because he's going to hit you hard, but the one that hits you hard or that hits you out of nowhere you're not expecting is the one that actually puts you down. So, I mean, it speaks more to his fluidity and movement for being somebody who can get close and actually in range of striking. What do you think?
Right on. Well, listen, man, I don't know. When I look at this, I want to say, okay, well, Marquez has a lot less fights. So, like, to have those types of numbers, it is impressive. But you also got a lot less fights. So, what type of caliber of competition are you really facing off against, right? I mean, Maki Pitolo, he's fought for regional championships. I mean, he's lost regional championships as well. But that's just kind of the stuff that I'm talking about. Now, you alluded to it earlier, but Julian Marquez is now training with James Krause, under James Krause at Glory MMA. And he says that's been a big mindset change. James Krause has made him kind of embrace that blue-collar workmanship, right? So I think it goes hand in hand because this dude Marquez is an actual beast, man. Like, he had Phil Haas backpacked on him and just stood up Derek Lewis style in their Contender Series fight, which I thought was pretty incredible. But nonetheless, man, 1-1 in the UFC. He's got to prove why his nickname is the Cuban Missile Crisis, and I think he will get it done. But I do want to just ask you this before we give our pick on this one. So Darren Stewart is the common opponent between both of these fighters, right? They both fought Darren Stewart 2 fights ago. Now, Maki Pitolo lost. He got submitted in the first round. Nobody saw it coming. We predicted that fight. Nobody saw it coming. Neither of us did. Now, Julian Marquez, he got the dub against Darren Stewart, but he submitted him in the second round. So I think that Julian Marquez, though he only has one submission to Maki Pitolo's 3, I do think Julian Marquez has a little bit better ground game, and I do think that's the additional weapon that is kind of putting it over the top for me. I just wanted to kind of point that out. So, AJ, who's your pick and why?
Yeah, Derek, that's actually what I agreed with a lot, is exactly that they both can stand up and bang, and they both can trade, have great hearts, have great chins. But Marquez has the one advantage of where he can go to the ground and has that one dependency. For me personally, I'm going Marquez, KO round 1. I'm expecting a very exciting, flashy, very fast-paced first round. Who you got?
So I'm basically along the same lines with you. I'm just going Marquez knockout round 3. And the reason why is because, like I said, I've seen Maki Pitolo take big shots from Impa Kasanganai, you know what I mean? Take shots from Darren Stewart, Chris Bird, who he actually knocked out, you know what I mean? Like, he's fought some, not the best opposition, but he's fought some hitters. And with that being said, the reason why you can sit there with the inability to move your head and all that is because you got a granite chin, and these dudes are not knocking you out. But I don't think that Marquez is going to try to force it. So I think knockout round 3 sounds good to me.